Welcome to Protea Conversations, the podcast where leadership in business and accounting isn't just discussed, it's explored. I'm your host, Zane Stevens, and thank you for joining me as we delve into the minds of some of the most influential leaders in the industry. Our journey is one of discovery, from unraveling the unique stories that shaped our guests' careers to invaluable advice that fueled their success. We're here to provide you with simple, actionable advice to accelerate your career and personal growth. Whether you're a budding professional or a seasoned executive, these conversations are designed to offer insight and perspectives that resonate with everyone. So tune in, engage, and be inspired as we build better leaders together. Welcome to Protea Conversations. Today I'm joined by my guest whose work plays a vital role in some of the life's most sensitive and complex moments. Lori Beth Merrill is a professional fiduciary with Paladin Fiduciary Services based in Santa Rosa, California. With deep expertise in estate planning, trust administration, financial management, and acting as an agent under durable power of attorney, Lori Beth supports individuals and families through transitions that require both technical knowledge and human compassion. Paladin Fiduciary Services offers a comprehensive suite of services, including conservatorship of the person and estate, benefit assessment and procurement, medical case management, and estate disposition. Simply put, they step in when people need a trusted advocate the most. Lori Beth, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Zane.
A lot of big words in there that I'm stumbling across this morning, but in short, what exactly is a fiduciary?
Well, the quickest way that I'm able to explain it to people is that we are professional children. We are surrogates. Most people who have children will name a child on their estate planning documents. And there's 4 essential documents in any estate plan, and those would be a living trust, a pour-over will, a power of attorney for healthcare, sometimes it's referred to as a healthcare directive, and also a durable power of attorney. And sometimes that is called a power of attorney for business and finance, and that covers non-trust assets. So somebody would name a child and expect this child to be able to carry on the duties and responsibilities that come with each one of the documents. And so instead of a child performing these duties, a person can name us, a professional fiduciary company, to step in and play that role.
I mean, it feels like people would need that, just taking myself as experience. I'm a pretty terrible kid in general. To my parents, sort of, I'm like, get on with your own thing, I'll get on with my own life. So, trying to put me, in the trust of doing some of these things once, they passed, probably wouldn't be the greatest option. 1, I'm busy. 2, I probably won't even know what half these things are and what they really want because we haven't had those conversations. So I can see how having that surrogate, child coming in that can really help things, especially during what is generally a pretty emotional period of time.
So to that point, Zane, that is one of the main reasons that parents select us, is because they do understand what a commitment and even a burden it is to expect your child during a period of deep grieving to all of a sudden have high executive function, performing tasks that they've never done in their entire life. And that's kind of a recipe for a disaster for several reasons. There is such an incredibly steep learning curve to administering an estate. Even now, with living trusts where the court isn't involved, you still have to go through all of the same processes. You just don't have the court sign off on it, which is a blessing and a curse because sometimes the courts actually catch things that need to happen. So if you're just out there on your own, untethered, you're going to sure miss a very vital step or a deadline, or something's going to fall through the cracks.
Yeah, and I would say, like, for me, it seems like it'd be really difficult to sort of find that sweet spot between being overly emotional about the situation or being very cold to the situation as well. And I feel like neither side of that, emotion is really the right way to approach this type of situation.
So if you're not busy carrying on this tremendous responsibility of having to administer your parents' estate, it gives you that time and ability to just really deal in the emotional realm. So you're not conflicted in any way. And back to what you were saying about you personally, I don't know if you have siblings, but most people do have siblings. And so the parents are really torn between picking one child that they think has enough wherewithal mentally and physically to carry it out. And unfortunately, that kind of puts a false golden halo floating over that child. And the other siblings become immediately paranoid, suspicious, feeling left out. And because everyone is so emotional, and we are all familiar with the stages of grieving, and one of them is anger. The other siblings get angry and they take it out on the sibling who got chosen to fulfill these duties. And it's very unfortunate because they're really sandwiched. They're going through the grieving, they're going through trying to learn this brand new skill, and they are also trying to deal with the sibling dynamics. So we are there to do the heavy lifting and to direct all the dynamics of the family.
Really interesting. So, Lori Beth, let's take a step back and tell me, how did you get into this world of fiduciary services? Where did your career start, and what was the path that you took to get here?
Well, first, I want to show you this, Zane. Sorry, it's your problem now because I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that answers your question. And if my sister could have said this while she was living, she would have. But that's what happened. My sister had no estate plan whatsoever. And so what does that mean? That means that your estate will end up in probate. And while probate is actually appropriate for some, and now they have raised the level to $700,000, which is a tremendous help to keep costs down,
Mm-hmm.
it is still a judiciary process, which means it takes time. You have to go to the court for everything. And so I went through this very laborious, long, expensive process of taking my sister's estate through probate. And I literally, for instance, had to spend 40 hours just to get an account that was only worth, $1,200. And so it's just not cost effective when you're out there flailing, not knowing how to deal with these financial institutions, the documents they require. And so I just decided at that point in time, if I'm struggling with this, I want to make it easier for other people who are trying to deal with a loss and trying to do the right, responsible thing for your loved one's estate. And I was shocked to find out that this was a viable profession, that people could do this. And so I was just thrilled that this was something that I could help other people with.
So what were you doing before becoming a fiduciary?
Well, and that's a great question, what I was doing before. I was working for various county assessor, change of ownership department is what it was actually called. And you would think it was very binary. Either the real property has changed ownership or it hasn't. And then from there, we could determine if that person, because they were a child, was entitled to a parent-to-child exclusion. So I helped a lot of families avoid reassessment and a raise in taxes. But what that entailed, Zane, was going through line by line thousands of estate planning trusts. And so I did that for decades. And so I felt very well equipped to help people with their estate planning questions and concerns.
Interesting. I mean, it should be pretty logical to me that role does exist, but I didn't really think about that was a position that somebody actually has to make that assessment around, property taxes and what they can cost, because that can be pretty burdensome if those reassessments take place. So it sounds like a fairly high pressure job in terms of making sure you get the right assessment done.
Right. And so our baseline thought process as fiduciaries is we step into the shoes of our clients And we are always looking at all the exemptions, all the exclusions, all the deductions, anything that is going to optimize the estate so that we more than pay for ourselves. And what do I mean by that? Meaning, if an estate has to go through a probate, there are probate calculators online, and I encourage our clients to Google them and put in the value of their estate. It's something you could do right now. You could Google that and put in the value of your estate, because if it has to go through probate, is state mandated fees. What does that mean? That means there's no negotiation. You can't go to an attorney or a fiduciary and say, hey, can you give me a price break? This is what the government sets as the minimum amount to charge the decedent's estate to process everything having to do with administration. So not only does the attorney get their state mandated fees, which is a tiered scheme, but also the fiduciary or whoever is the personal representative or executor if your estate's going through probate. So you can see even a modest estate is going to experience, $48,000 in fees. And so this is quite a significant savings in order to optimize the estate. We deal with a lot of folks who maybe don't have kids, but they want to leave things to charity, and we're all about that. Okay. And so we still, again, because we're fiduciaries, we must optimize the estate and the amount that's available to beneficiaries, whether they're your children or charities or other loved ones.
So while you were talking, typed into my search engine probate calculator. I pulled up the first one that came up, which is probatecalculator.org. Who knows how good it is? But I put in what is a very modest estate for California of $2 million. With most houses at $1 million already, it's not much. I selected all assets types, so real estate, stock and investment, and personal property. And this pushed out that for a probate, it would cost the individual $140,500, $80,000 of that being attorney fees, $60,000 executor fees, and court fees of $500. Again, I don't know how accurate it is. That's 7% is a pretty decent number.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are mirrored fees, so that if you make sure that it's probate for California, they're mirrored fees. So whatever the attorney's getting, the administrator is getting a mirrored amount of fees. And in addition to that, if there is real estate involved, that is considered extraordinary fees, and you can petition the court to get extra amounts above and beyond the statutory fees, because selling a house is quite a lot. Because as fiduciaries, we're not having a fire sale. We're not just selling as quickly to the first person. We know exactly how much to put into that house to make it desirable in the marketplace and not to overdo as well. And so we deal with every aspect of a person's estate. But also, I wanted to mention, Zane, there's a lot of time before when a person leaves the planet, and that's what I call it, and when they become ill. So we see a lot of people come in, they're healthy as can be, and we're so happy. And before we take on anybody, they do have to have an estate plan in place, because we cannot act without authority. So even though they may give us verbal authority, we need actual documentation in the form of the estate plan to act on their behalf. They may be well and healthy for many years, and we are thrilled for that. But most people, especially now, dementia is huge. And so there's going to be some type of physical, mental, or both, some type of decline for which they will need our services. And we provide those services as well.
So let's talk about those services. That was a great segue into my next question of, as a fiduciary, what do you do for people before they pass? What are those services and what do they look like?
Well, again, hearkening back to the analogy of a surrogate child. If you had to go into the hospital, that's a pretty scary time. And if you have no children, we are your children. We're the ones that are going to show up with the fuzzy slippers and your toothbrush and your cell phone charged up, and make sure that you feel comforted and that you really know what's going on. It's rather shocking. I've had a lot of clients who have ended up in the hospital for multiple day stays, and they cannot get the straight answer out of the nursing staff, out of the doctors, as to what's their condition, what is the prognosis, and what is the plan for when they're discharged. And so we are there coordinating those medical services so that our clients are well informed and can make good decisions. And nicely enough, when our clients get better, we kind of step away. So we're not some type of, eucalyptus tree. We're not some type of invasive species. We just kind of ebb and flow with the needs of our clients. We're there upon invitation by our clients, or when an emergent situation presents itself and that it would be obvious to anyone that we should take action.
That makes sense. I'm assuming what you do generally involves a fair amount of emotion and a lot going on, either with your client or with their family around you. How do you deal with situations where family members aren't that happy that you're around?
Well, I think going back to the anger, but that's after death. But during life, there's definitely a little bit of like sibling rivalry with myself, because here I am, the perfect sister. I'm the one that got selected. But it doesn't take long for them to realize that we're all on the same side and the goal is the same: to take good care of a parent or parents. And they are absolutely consulted, they're looped in, and they are part of the team. I give them tasks. I tell them, if you are willing to do X, Y, or Z, this can save money. So that really appeals to them on two fronts. One, they see that I'm not all about the money. And two, they really feel valued and a participant, and that I'm evaluating their skill set and asking them to help in the best way possible. So yes, there's always going to be a little rub, but as they see us perform over time, and we are very transparent in communicating what we're doing and why we're doing it, sometimes things come up that they never thought about. And then they're like so grateful. They're like, wow, thank you for being there. Thank you for doing that. And so it does take time. It's not just add water and everything's good. What our clients can do, obviously, in advance is introduce us into the equation. So the kids already know who I am and our staff members and what they do. And they can voice their concerns directly and privately to us. And we can have a very open and robust conversation.
Very interesting. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of difficult or high-stakes decisions that need to be made within this process, before and after passing. How do you go about making those decisions, and how do you stay neutral in the situation? Because especially if you've had some of these clients for a long time, there's got to be some emotion that's grown along the way.
If you don't like the emotional weather, wait 5 minutes. It's ever changing. However, with an excellent estate plan, meaning not just some type of boilerplate language, but something a little more personal and customized to our client, we use that as our instructions. And we adhere to that to the letter, meaning the more instructions you can give in your living trust or your power of attorney for healthcare, especially about what you want during life, how you want to be treated. Do you want heroic measures? Do you want no intervention? All those instructions are very informative to us. That's the written word that we follow. Also, we get to really know our clients and get a sense of who they are, their values, their hopes, their dreams, and especially their regrets, and how they're hoping that their contribution and legacy will help soothe some of those hurts of the past, but also not to just toss unearned blessing to somebody who can't appreciate it, but it be thoughtful and measured. So in these ways, we get to know our clients in a personal relationship. We have this backup documentation. And between the two, we really get a sense of what they want. And the beautiful thing is we have, we have Medi-Cal to millionaires. We have atheists to, very sacred religious folk. And these people will never know what we think or how we feel because we are there to support them and to respect their decisions. Sometimes we do challenge them with questions because, again, we're all human. We come in with baggage. We come in with hurts. But this is really the final goodbye. So perhaps somebody who has turned their back on their childhood upbringing embraces it again because they want to make it right, not only with the people on earth, but what they think or believe that they are going to encounter in the afterlife. So this is how we are able to deal with it because we have a solid foundation of knowing who our clients are and what they want.
So for me, it seems to be an important lesson there is if you're going to create an estate plan when you're 25, make sure to look at it again and not just look at it at the end of life again.
Absolutely. So we deal obviously with a great cadre of estate planning attorneys. There are different budgets, different personalities, different locations. And we do play matchmaker a lot because obviously if we are going to be named on these estate planning documents, we want to have some good degrees of separation. So what is it that you're trying to get at, Zane?
Well, I think a lot of us, me as well, like, I don't know, wrote our estate plan 5 years ago. I haven't looked at it again. It's just a document that's sitting in a fireproof box to make sure that it'll still be there if I pass.
And digital copies as well. But back to your point about, and also too, you brought it. So there's 2 points I want to address. Yes, you must absolutely update your estate plan at milestones. If you get married, when you have children, when major laws change. And so any of these attorneys that we would loop you in with are keeping in touch with you and saying, has everything changed? Because we all have these great relationships and we've named so-and-so to be our, power of attorney for healthcare. And then, oh my gosh, they're having their own health issues and are really not well suited, or they move away. You need to have somebody who's going to be close by, who can show up at the ER. So there's all these little tendrils of consideration. But the second point I wanted to address is about the age. So I'm often asked, so Lori Beth, what happens if something happens to you? And I think it's important on 2 levels because something could happen to me. A lot of my fellow fiduciaries are solo practitioners. They work out of their home. They don't have a law degree. They don't have staff. They don't even have perhaps errors and omission insurance. So it's important, and they may be very well capable. Most all fiduciaries have a very strong foundation. But these are questions that you want to ask. But getting back to the age thing, I have a nice young fiduciary on my staff, and I have several in the making. So I have a succession plan, meaning if I'm not around or I'm unable to service my clients, I have another generation waiting to be of assistance.
And does your clients interact with your team on a regular basis, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah, they do. And so that's the other thing, Obviously, our services cost money, and we love to have our clients interact. Some clients, sometimes it's weekly while they're dealing with a particular issue and we get through it together. Sometimes it's annually. It's really up to the interface that the client feels comfortable with. But yeah, everybody gets to know everybody on the staff. And we also have weekly staff meetings, so we're constantly reviewing our client roster just to see if there's something that we need to touch upon to make sure they feel that, hey, we're still here and we still care.
Great. You spoke about working closely with estate planning attorneys. Are there any other sort of professionals that you work closely with to assist your clients?
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize first, if our clients, and most of them do, because they've lived a good amount of life, have established CPAs or tax preparers. They also have their own attorney normally, and it's usually an estate planning attorney, but usually a family attorney. And they also have investment advisors. And so we are not there to dislodge or replace those good relationships. We are there to coordinate. And if somebody isn't performing well for our clients, and because we do monitor their investment goals and their tax returns and the applicability of an estate plan to their situation, if something needs tweaking or changing or replacing, we certainly have a lot of trusted folks that do well for our clients.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. When should somebody be seeking out a fiduciary? Sort of, is there a specific wealth level, point in time, situational? Like, I'm always intrigued by who should have a fiduciary.
I would say anybody who is fortunate enough to have a real estate, because you want that real estate to be in a living trust. So unless you just have a bunch of cash accounts with named beneficiaries, which is fine, honestly, a living trust is not for everybody. But the fiduciary part, again, it goes back to, it's not just the after death, it's the during life. So I also deal with a lot of special needs trusts. So maybe these people aren't elderly, but maybe they're disabled and their parents are very concerned about who's going to take care of their child after they've gone, because they've been doing the heavy lifting for that child's entire life and making sure they've had everything they need. But it's also fraught with the parents playing two roles, and they're so wrapped up in the parental role, they miss a lot of the legalities of being a trustee for a special needs trust. And that's where we come in. So getting back to answering your question about what age, it's need dependent. So if there is a child with any type of special needs, or there's no proper guardians on the horizon, you may want to loop a fiduciary in earlier. But certainly at the milestone of owning your first house, having any children, would be a very important time to get the estate plan. And at the same time, because we are named in those estate planning documents, secure a fiduciary. And the reason I emphasize secure is because there's only approximately 800 practicing professional fiduciaries in the state of California, and there's 40 million people. So we are truly a rarity, but we are part of that core professional group that you need. You had mentioned, we were talking about you need an estate planning attorney, a financial advisor, and a CPA or tax preparer. You also need a fiduciary.
Okay. How would I find a fiduciary? What would they be? Just go to Google and type in fiduciary in my area, or is there a better way to go about it?
Well, there's actually about 3 ways. Absolutely, Zane. You could say fiduciary near me. Mm-hmm. You can also go to the Professional Fiduciaries Association of California website. That's PFAC, and do a search. And the neat thing about that is you can add some more filters. So if you speak a different language and you would like a fiduciary who might speak your native tongue, or has a specialty, like you're looking for a court accounting because you are in litigation and you need somebody who focuses on that area. So much like attorneys, fiduciaries can specialize as well. If you need a conservator for your parent who has dementia, if you need a special needs trustee for your child. So you can do the filters that way. You can also look at the Department of Consumer Affairs professional fiduciary section and search for fiduciaries that way. And so there's at least 3 different ways. And if you already have an estate planning attorney, certainly ask them for a recommendation for a fiduciary that they have worked with.
So I guess the bigger question is how do I even know what a fiduciary is? I mean, before I met you, I had no idea that this even existed. So, if it wasn't, part of my life and I needed a fiduciary, I wouldn't even know that this sort of role even exists. So how do people find out about fiduciaries? Is it the estate planning attorneys that are putting it out there? So, outside of these websites that you've just mentioned, is there other ways that people get to you? Because for me, it feels like this hidden world almost. And honestly, it feels like, it's for the very rich. They need a lot of money to deal with it, which you've obviously pointed out. That's not the case. It really is more dependent on needs of the person than value of the estate. So how do we find out about this? Why is this not better known by other people?
So, Zane, that is a beautiful question. And once upon a time, I'm sure we've all had the experience where we've watched a movie where it's some dark office, maybe the attorney's even smoking a cigar, and all the heirs to the estate are in these chairs just quivering and wondering what's going to happen. And the attorney will he'll hold up a piece of paper and he's like, now for the reading of the will, and it's very, so we have come from that culture where literally that was the only document in play, and people were clueless as to what they might get or not get. We've evolved from that to the development of the living trust. We still do have this vestigial will, but it's a pour over will. And it basically says anything we forgot, whoops-a-daisy, goes into the living trust, again, to avoid probate and all those attendant fees that we ran through. And then it's like, okay, so now with the rise of dementia, the power of attorney for healthcare has really become key. And then they realized rather quickly, well, not everybody wants to put every single asset in the name of the trust. So for instance, if you have an IRA, you certainly don't want to put that in the trust because there's severe tax consequences. So how can that person that you're naming deal with that? And so there was the advent of the durable power of attorney. So all of these wonderful documents have sprung up out of necessity. And the evolution of the estate plan now includes the fiduciary. And to your point, Zane, our biggest recommendation is other fiduciaries, because we really are so very popular. Once people figure out, they're like, oh my gosh, these people exist. We want them to deal with it. I don't want to burden my child. This is too complicated. There is so much, and it's just going to create havoc. So how they realize this hidden world is the sophisticated estate planning attorney who's like, you do not want to name your child. It's going to come with all kind of problems that you can't even envision right now. Even if your kid went to Harvard, even if they're all hearts and stars right now, because of the unique emotional nature of assets and sibling dynamics, it's not going to go well. And so we also have our clients recommending other people. They come in by, I don't want to be, too hyperbolized here, but really they come in by the droves. I have at least 2 or 3 new folks every week coming in and just being so relieved that they have discovered this secret world of fiduciaries. It sounds like a Netflix documentary, The Secret World of Fiduciaries.
For sure.
But we're just so thrilled and very honored to help them because we don't want people thinking like, so they do. So people
Yeah.
get a real sense of, hey, I'm mortal and I got to get this dialed in. And so we don't, at this point, because of the sophistication, word of mouth, happy clients, sophisticated attorneys, and the network through PFAC, we have many, many referrals. And once somebody's experienced us during life, they just never want to go back because we get things done in the right way at the right time.
Makes a lot of sense. So you told me there's 800-ish fiduciaries, which means there's not enough, which means now's your chance. Let's recruit. Who should be considering becoming a fiduciary?
Well, it is you can take several routes. So who should consider it is anybody who has an accounting background, maybe a licensed therapist, somebody in the social studies realm, because you have to have those eclectic skill sets. You have to be really good with the numbers like you are, Zane, and you have to be really, good with the people at the same time.
So I'm probably not a good fiduciary.
No, you'd be fabulous on the number side. And we need that because part of the probate code, even if you have a living trust, the probate code covers us. We have to produce what's called accountings. And that's really bedrock because we're touching people's money. And that's part of the nervousness of surrendering to hiring somebody like us is they really want to make sure we're not, running off to Argentina and getting cosmetic surgery done or whatever it is. But honestly, I've been at this 7+ years and I appreciate the oversight. The state of California, we have to report everybody's financials every year, what we started with and what we ended up with. So there's no hinky, funny business. Anybody that our client says, hey, I want them to look at your accountings, we're happy to provide a copy. But back to who would be a good match. Caregivers are good matches because they are really great case managers for the medical piece. Veterans, because we do benefits that are life-changing. Again, it's all about optimization during life as well as to your benefits to make your money last. So anybody who's has a heart for the elderly and can just meet people where they are, not where they expect them to be.
Makes a lot of sense. So, Lori Beth, tell me, what does a normal day look like for you?
Well, every day is different, and that is one of the exciting things. Of course, there's the routine duties. Sometimes folks are not able to pay their own bills, so we're literally paying their PG&E bill, their water bill, their garbage bill, and just keeping them apprised every month of what we have done. Sometimes even elderly folks are going through divorces and we're literally helping them through their divorce, moving out their spouse's possessions, putting it in storage units. And we're just economizing and looking over everything for them. Right now, obviously, we're dead in the middle tomorrow of tax season. So we're filing taxes for a lot of our clients, us, our company. And then we're gathering together all the tax documentation to put over to their professionals. Again, it's whatever their preference is. And so we could be running to a hospital. We could be letting loved ones know that their person has passed away. We could be lodging a will with the probate court. We could be making distributions to heirs or beneficiaries. So every day is absolutely different. And it just depends on what's needed.
So it's an exciting world, even though it's an emotionally driven world. There is plenty of opportunity. So people listening who have that sense of wanting to help people, plus have some good number background, maybe some legal background, feels like a fiduciary would be a really great place to find yourself. Feels like a position, though, obviously pays the bills on your side, is also very rewarding because it's helping people through some very difficult parts of their lives, which is fantastic.
Right. And so getting back to the qualifications, the state, determines what makes that up. And so certainly if you have a bachelor's, and it can be in anything, And then you take 2 additional fiduciary classes and you pass a test, which is national and local, and you pay the fee, then you too can have a fiduciary license. But that's just a piece of paper.
Yep.
What it really takes is someone who's been there and can guide you through how to navigate these tricky and sometimes seems like a huge crisis and maintain your cool so you can go the distance and you don't burn out by getting too wrapped up in the emotion. Not that you lack empathy or compassion, because certainly we're there. And so that's how you qualify. Or you can also qualify with a combination of experience by working for a company such as my company and education. So you could have an associate's and 3 years of experience and the 2 fiduciary classes and pass the test, or 5 years of on-the-job experience, 2 classes, pass the test. So I have folks on my staff that are all at all levels. I have a person who's just about ready to take the test. I know she'll do great. So I'm very excited about that. Yep. And again, as I said, I already have a young fiduciary on staff. I have lots of people who have those backgrounds that make sense to be in this business.
Excellent. Lori Beth, it's been so interesting to learn about what a fiduciary is, what they do, and the type of person should be looking to enter this career. But let's take a bigger picture of things. And can you share with some of us some of the best advice that you ever received to help you be successful?
Well, in this business, there was kind of 3 things at the very beginning. Is the importance of accountings, because unfortunately not all fiduciaries are the same. Yep. And most fiduciaries run afoul when they just don't comply. So it's compliance issues. So I've seen situations where I've been asked to step in because the fiduciary has been non-communicative. And not to excuse, but, maybe they're just overwhelmed and just are not, the account isn't exactly active. So they're just kind of putting it on the back burner. And so, those accountings are really super important. The other thing is to set the expectations with your client, because we're not magicians. We can't make your money last and meet all your needs if you don't have enough money to begin with. Most people are so relieved when we take over, in the sense of for children who are struggling, and we take that on and we lessen the burden. But unfortunately, as time goes on, if their resources are dwindling, now all of a sudden, they want to shoot the messenger. And so I think it's really important to, early on, set the expectations, have a realistic budget, and have these plans for folks. One of the things I've learned in my experience to be a success at this is to understand that as people decline, their need for care increases, and that is an increase in expense. Normally, if somebody needs 8 hours of more of in-home caregiving, they're going to get much more for their money if they are willing to consider living at a boarding care, which is a very home-like setting, or go to an assisted living place. It's just much more value for the dollar, because if somebody needs 24/7 care, that can run you $45,000 a month. And so that's just not cost effective. And we wouldn't be doing our jobs as fiduciaries to let the money run out under those circumstances. So it's super important to have these budgetary discussions in the beginning. Lastly, to be a success, I have a 35-question vetting program, because you underscore the emotionality of it. I'm not immune to a good story. Sure. However, I don't want to do a disservice to them or, ignore other clients because this one is so high touch that we're spending 90% of our resources attending to their needs. And so I go through this vetting. No one ever knows that they're being vetted. It's very considerate and gentle, and it gives a score at the end. And it's an empirical score, so that we know if it's a fit and if it's going to go well, because that's really what we want. We want people's resources to last. We want the relationship to last. Because regardless of if people really think that we're only coming in after they leave the planet, I know that's not true. So however brief our encounters, we need to be able to understand each other and work well together.
Makes sense. Lori Beth, I really appreciated the conversation today, getting to learn a little bit more about a fiduciary. At Product Conversations, we like to finish off with learning a little bit more about you. So do you have anything you'd like to share with us or give us a little bit of insight into who Lori Beth is as a person outside of her professional life?
Outside of the professional life. So people often ask me, like, what do you do to blow off steam? It's probably pretty intense dealing with all these people at the stages of their life when they're terminal or when they're, just going through it because they're not embracing their life circumstances well, or the children are having all this guilt and they want to do something, but they don't want to do anything.
Yep.
And so how do I really balance that? And so for myself, I upcycle furniture. And it's kind of poetic in the sense that I find value where other people have discarded things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like to beautify and look for that and pass it on. I upcycle furniture, refinish it, and I paint it, and I just really enjoy that. I love music and I love just nature. I love walking in the woods and, not to bring it back to not me, but I had a client who was recently buried. Their ashes were buried in a private forest. And so it is called A Better Place. And so we just really, play off of each other. We do get together as a company outside of work and enjoy each other's talents. And so I am able to succeed in this business because of my staff, because it can be very isolating. Mm-hmm. You can imagine you're taking too much on, you're not seeing well. And so to have these beautiful soundboards and to have other avenues to get through the day. And, I do love to travel. And so, it's just really all about balance and self-care. I learned that early from another fiduciary. It's like, you have to take care of yourself. And you have to just have those healthy boundaries and really just turn off your phone. Of course, I have somebody else on call in case there's an emergency, but just really have that decompress time.
Yeah.
What else really leads to sustainability in this is just authenticity. I am very much, there was a saying, I think it was the 70s or 80s, WYSIWYG, meaning what you see is what you get. Huh. And so I'm myself with my clients, and that's what they love about me because they know this is me every time. And so that really helps to go the long haul.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. Last up, I have 5 rapid fire questions for you if you're ready.
Okay, let's go.
What is your dream vacation?
Ooh, my dream vacation. I know I said I love to travel, so I'm not going to take away from that, but my dream vacation is a staycation. I'm actually looking at hillside property to have a house built. And nice. I would just love that because I just love the perspective, the vista, the calm, the peace that it brings. I enjoy staying with my husband and my cats. That was plural, but he has 1 cat and I have 2. We've done the cat math, so I'm not the crazy cat lady. So staycation. I just really enjoy that.
We have 6 cats, so those 3 cats doesn't seem like too much.
Excellent.
Question 2. Do you prefer audiobook or paper books?
Paper. I'm very tactile. Call me a Renaissance woman, but it also really connects me to my clients because the younger generation, I'm in that realm as well, but I'm also in their realm. So I really love the sound of the paper, the weight of the book.
If you had 20 minutes to exercise, what would that exercise be?
Oh, Pilates for sure. Because it really combines all the stretching, a little few yoga moves, but really that core strength.
Mhm. Great. What is your favorite piece of technology that makes your life easier?
Well, I would say actually it's Zooming. And because, or any online, because
Yep.
my clients, sometimes they're in hospital beds and I need to
Yeah.
visit them, but I want to be mindful of the charges. So it's a lot
Yeah.
more efficient for me to have a Zoom with them, to meet clients who travel the world. And they're like, okay, Lori, we made it to our
Yeah.
destination, we're good. So, I think because of, unfortunately, COVID, and it's really ramped that up. But it is a way to still connect with people. So that's really made my life in this profession a lot easier.
Great. Last question. What was your favorite childhood meal as a kid when you were growing up?
Well, this is horrible, but my mom, there was many, unfortunately. It was something that was called Lincoln Lee pudding, and I've searched high and low for that. But really, my mom would make this concoction. She called it lamb's food. I don't know what lamb would actually eat this, but it was butter and powdered sugar. And so I still struggle with my sweet tooth today from those early brain wirings of the sugar bugs there. That was kind of my favorite food. It was sweet, but
It's a great option, and it's as
yeah.
long as it brings back memories, that's always a good one. Lori Beth, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate
And
having this
thank you,
conversation with
Zane.
you.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we ended another Project Conversations. Thank you for joining us in this journey of learning and inspiration. Today, we've gained insight from our guest and taken another step towards understanding the diverse tapestry of leadership in business and accounting. Remember, each conversation is a step towards the positive transformation of business leaders. We hope our discussion has given you valuable takeaways to apply in your own career and life. Don't forget to subscribe to Project Conversations on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so connect with me on social media channels. I'm most active on LinkedIn and would love you to join the conversation. Join us next time for more engaging stories, advice, and conversations that matter. Until then, keep striving for excellence, embracing growth. Thank you for listening, be kind, and goodbye from Project Conversations.